Gabriel. Launches touchdown. Nick Anderson.
Oh, it is the 120th version of Red River Rivalry Week. If you have never been to this game, if you're not a sports fan, I highly encourage it at least once. That was last year. Texas, -3 in the turnover department. And those are the kinds of things that will lose you this game. Of course, OU has dominated Texas in this century. And we're going to talk about all of that with a guy. It's funny how this world works. The TV station that I worked for nearly a little over 6 years in Oklahoma City. Well, this guy who's been a friend since day one of mine when I was in Oklahoma City, he was in the radio and now works for big Fox 25 in Oklahoma City. We're like family. And we're going to talk about the Red River rivalry as we are now 2 days away. Let's talk about it.
There's nothing like it because you see a wave of orange and crimson. You see one side over here cheering us on, and you see another side throwing the horns down and booing. It's just crazy. It gets you fired up from as soon as you're rolling in on the bus.
Kobe Daniels on your right, somewhere in, I guess, Oklahoma City, I would imagine. We see each other probably once a year, and we call it a reunion, but it's more or less, me always telling you, God, it's been too long. It's been 3, 4, 5 years since I've been up in OKC. Man, welcome. You're now part of the Stories Inside the Man Cave family. I appreciate it. And it's the big week. It's good to see you, brother.
Clinch, my brother. It's good to see you. Full circle, right? I mean, it used to be me doing a podcast asking you, the TV guy, to join the podcast. And now you're the podcaster. I'm the TV guy at your old stomping grounds, right? So we've come full circle. And, dude, is there a better week in the entire calendar than Red River Week, OU Texas? And I think we're in store for something special.
I do too. Do you think there's any chance after this year, after Saturday, that the SEC will admit or say, you know what? Yeah, that Texas OU thing or OU Texas, that's our number one rivalry.
Zero chance.
Zero
chance. They're not going to give that crown to the new guy, right? Have you ever been anywhere where the new guy immediately gets his flowers? No way.
No.
I think they will earn a new level of respect for OU Texas and the Red River rivalry. Looking at it through the SEC lens, they'll say, okay, you know what? That's better than I thought it was. But they're not going to say that is the king of the mountain. There's no chance.
There's not a chance in hell that'll be this guy. You're gonna love it. I know. Let's Talk About It is a shorter version, but you're gonna become a fan of the Kobe Daniels. And this was us about. I hate putting years on it, and I hate admitting how quickly time flies. But this was us almost a decade ago at the game. Look at this. You and Sam Mays used to work together. Jim Ross. That was a great day, and that is when the Texas band was, I believe, was talking about, "Oh, you can lick my balls." They were singing that.
I think that was an exact quote. Yeah.
I did not. Correctly. That's not me. That's not you coining a quote. This is what came out of their mouths as the OU band was walking up.
Now, I will say, I don't know if those were the exact words. That's my recollection, but I was incredibly hungover that morning. And I was doing everything in my power not to vomit all over the football field from the massive party that took place the night before. So my memory is a little hazy from that morning, but man, there is nothing like the pregame on the field. You know, the fans are coming in. You start to see the red on one side, the orange on the other. It's just magical.
It is next level excitement. It's what makes college football, college sports great. And I tell you what, if you're hungover for this game, the last thing you want to smell, and you will, it's overwhelming, are the turkey legs. That is not good for someone who is hungover from the night before. That's just my 2 cents on that, Colby.
It gets the stomach turning a little bit more than it already was, doesn't it?
Bring the pocket airplane size Tums or Pepto with you. It's a pro tip.
Or just give me another beer, right? Like let's restart the engine.
Yes. Bite the dog that bit you the night before. Before we get going, go ahead and follow us. And I'm still on month number 3 of not updating TikTok. It's too much work, Colby. I love it. There's so many platforms, but as you know, it requires a lot of time to create content. Sorry, TikTok, but I do appreciate those who are following and have faith that one day I'm going to post something. That's all I can say about that. And I apologize. And quick shout out to Honest Plumbing and Air. They're the exclusive sponsors of Let's Talk About It, where a handshake still means something. And if I recall right, a handshake does mean something in the north of the Red River. There'll be a lot of handshaking and a lot of hand sanitizer with COVID being exchanged on Saturday, but we're not. That's a joke. That is a joke. We take COVID seriously, right? I think
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as I was going through highlights this week, obviously from all the great games in this series, it's crazy to me how many empty seats there were in 2020. Right?
That was bizarre.
You get the shots of the crowd, and it's just empty in comparison to what you see every other year,
right.
And it was pretty mind blowing to see.
Insane. I will give it to them. They did have the game.
For what was a stupid, great game, right?
Well over 100 points scored. Not a lot of defensive prowess on display that day. But so the Sooners are 14.5-point underdogs. And let's get to it. Let's hear from Brent Venables, the OU head coach. He's really not talking about that role. And my light here went out though. So we're having a little romantic glow here, but this is Brent Venables not exactly talking about the point spread, but realizing he's on the other side of this where he knows they're not favored to win.
You're not going to luck up and win this game. You're going to have to go earn it. And a great opportunity for our players. Got back on track with our win against Auburn 2 weeks ago. And we got this next stretch run where we can really make a statement. But this is what you coach for. You want challenge? Well, you got it.
So, Colby, you've been around this game long enough, regardless of head coaches, Bob Stoops, Lincoln, and now Venables coming back to OU in this game. I mean, this is a guy, and even Lincoln, we'll talk about Venables because that's modern day. He has devised a lot of game plans to beat Texas in the past. And being a underdog means absolutely nothing in this game. What's your take on that?
As far as the underdog thing, I'm with you because I feel like we've seen nothing but close games in this series for a decade, right? I mean, 9 of the last 10 Red River matchups that took place in the Cotton Bowl are one possession finishes, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of those, I think we went into the games just looking at the two teams on paper and saying one team feels like it's a lot better than the other team. I know I felt that way about Texas last year. I thought Texas going into this game was a much better football team at that point in time than Oklahoma was. I would say there have been multiple times over the last 10 years going into games where I thought Oklahoma had a massive advantage on paper against Texas, and it turned into either a Texas win or a very close finish to the final buzzer at the end. So, yeah, I mean, anybody that thinks this is going to be a blowout, it certainly could be that. I mean, I think we've seen a lot more from Texas so far this season than we have from Oklahoma. And while the Oklahoma defense is absolutely elite, the offense leaves a lot to be desired. So on paper, I think Texas deserves to be more than a 2-touchdown favorite. I totally get that. I don't think that's outlandish. But if you've watched this series, you've watched this rivalry, and you just know anything about that atmosphere and the way that the momentum swings and having, the split at the 50-yard line, you know how easy it is for that gap to close and this to turn into, just absolute chaos, which we all love.
We do love it. We look forward to it. We live for the stress and the anxiety, or the fans do. And it's something special because there's no other game like it. But it's I mean, you go back to, let's say, the Peter Gardere years, late 80s, early 90s. He won 4 straight as a starter. Texas was not a very good team those during that era, except 1990. Then you go modern day, and you look at 2000 to 2004, Texas and OU were very similar teams. Great talent, except maybe 03, there was a little bit of a gap. But 2000 and 03, OU blew Texas out. I mean, it was horrific watching. You're like, how is this possible? But as you stated, that's just how this game is. And you talk about Vegas odds and everything like that. There's some people still, like David Benda, the Longhorn linebacker, who doesn't know what a favorite means as far as point spread. And he was shocked to know that it has something to do with putting money down in Vegas.
What does that mean? What the favorite system? How does that work?
The bettors think you are 2 touchdowns better than Oklahoma.
The bettors?
People gambling.
People that bet on the game.
Yeah.
You said gambling?
Right answer.
I don't.
Vegas.
I don't know. I've never been.
Gambling?
Yeah, I've never been to Vegas. I would love to go out to Vegas. I don't know about gambling. That's illegal.
It's illegal. Remember that, Kobe. It is illegal. Don't partake in any gambling, sir.
Listen, I know way too much about sports to think that I could actually make money gambling, so I stay as far away from it as possible. And I mean, David is a sensation, right? That thing has gone viral. I've had multiple people send it to me over the course of the week, and what a great moment.
It is a great moment. It's fun. He's a great guy. That guy is all about volunteerism and being in the community, and he will never say no to anyone to help anybody. Something that I've noticed about him. He was a Tom Herman recruit, by the way, and there's a lot of older guys, which we all know NIL is a big factor for both of these programs. Quick take before we talk about the series part of it. Defensively, Texas is really good, but I also think OU's right there. The only quality opponent that I know Texas has only given up 7 points per game, but if you really think about it, who they play, it's Mississippi State, who had a fresh start with the SEC opener. They're just not great, but the win on the road at Michigan was the only quality win to date. Is there enough sample set between these two teams to really make a true judgment?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Regardless of opponent, I think you can watch teams taking care of business in a certain way where they do what they should do, right? Good teams beat bad teams comfortably, right? Correct. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Like, we can talk about the level of competition. Oklahoma's non-conference was not good at all, and they struggled to put some bad teams away because offensively they've struggled throughout the season. We saw the defense play high-level football. We saw the offense really struggle. So,
right.
I think if you want to point at the level of competition, that's a fair comment to make. But Texas has done what good teams do against bad teams. And until we see otherwise, I don't know how you could hold that against them in terms of what you expect to see going forward. But yeah, I think they look really good on both sides of the football. To me, they're better offensively than defensively. But they've got playmakers pretty much everywhere. I mean, this has got to be as loaded a Texas roster, I feel like, as I've seen in a decade or more.
Yeah, you're right. I love the tweet from Gabe Eichert, former Sooner lineman, played shortly in the NFL. Now he's with you guys in the media. He said he was looking at tape. Isaiah Bond, the receiver that transferred from Alabama, he said, Isaiah Bond, he's good at tackle football.
He is he is as scary as a playmaker as there is in all of college football. I mean, and you've got like the short list is like Travis Hunter, the Gianti kid out of Boise State, if I'm even pronouncing that right. He's a superstar. McMillan at Arizona is one of those guys. I mean, Isaiah Bond is as dangerous as anyone in the country. Ryan Williams, probably from Alabama, is in that group. But yeah, Isaiah Bond absolutely is in that tier one of dangerous playmakers in the country.
It's insane. And I will say the Texas is different now. It is different. NIL and Portal have made a significant difference, and it has across the country. But I also think Sark they've got it right with him. Briefly, when you look at this and you think, oh my God, OU has won 6 of the last 8, but they own the 21st century. They really do. I mean, if you'd had no connections to either of these programs or this rivalry, does this blow you away when you see this 16-8 that OU leads this rivalry? Texas fans will always go to the overall series. I get it. I get that. But why do you think OU has had such pretty much a dominant outcome this century? If you take 05 to 09, Texas was the better program, losing just once in 07.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part is really the golden age, I feel like, of this series was 2000 to 2009.
Yep.
And for that 10-year stretch, I mean, these two programs collectively were easily, top 5 in the country nearly every year in that decade. Like, there have been lots of great games, and probably a lot of my favorite Red River games took place outside of that specific window. But in terms of the hype going into Red River games during that window, I don't think it's ever been bigger, right? I mean, for a decade there, when Bob had OU making national championship appearances and Mac took Texas to a couple, I mean, you were talking about top 5, top 10 teams that legitimately were national championship contenders every year going into the Cotton Bowl. So it's really interesting that I think the early part of that stretch, Oklahoma completely dominated, even though it kind of felt like it was like a national championship bid at stake in the Cotton Bowl. So I don't know what the reasoning would be, I guess, for Oklahoma's dominance this century. Texas had such a long stretch, obviously at the end of the Mac era, and then, the coaching carousel that took place leading up to Sark between there, where Oklahoma, I think, handled business for the most part. But the head scratching part to me is the 5 in a row, I think, from 2000 to 2004, where I think these were both two of the most talented teams in the country, and Oklahoma just annihilated everything in their path. It felt like in that stretch.
When this comes up, just in general conversation, I really don't have any answer. The only thing that I tell people is just from my experience covering OU from December of 06 to 12, was I really think that the OU way of doing things, they were tougher. It was more blue collar. It was just a tougher mentality. This is not a shot at Mac Brown. This is not a shot at any of those teams at Texas, because Texas they played good football.
People throw the word entitlement around, right?
Yeah.
And have, I think, in terms of Texas being compared to Oklahoma and the major difference. I don't know how true that is. I'm just saying that's one of the words that's thrown around as maybe a difference between the two.
That's it. That's exactly it. It was hard watching the Jackson Arnold first 3 games, highly recruited guy out of Denton, Texas, state champion. And he was highly recruited. So I from afar, it was just really difficult to watch this play out. But Venables and that staff had to make a decision. They had to make a change. So Auburn, Michael Hawkins Jr., first off, his dad. Give me a little quick backstory about his dad and his ties to OU.
His dad played at OU, obviously, and one of my buddies, Dusty Dvorak, has told me great things about him. They love the program. Dusty was telling me back in the spring even that Michael Hawkins was turning heads back in the spring, and I think part of the reason that it wasn't like, hey, we got to play this kid as the starter is because he comes in and he's turning heads with the expectation that he's going to be the third string quarterback, right? So if the bar is this guy's going to be our third string and he goes above that, then naturally you're going to be like, whoa, this guy's really shocking us.
Right.
Nobody was holding him to the standard of like, this is our starting quarterback. So I think that's maybe why you were hearing things, but it wasn't like there was a true quarterback competition. But the kid is a gamer. Clearly, I mean, he just feels like one of those guys that thrives in big moments. The thing that is amazing to me is he goes into the Tennessee game and I thought played as well as anyone could have expected him to play. And then the Auburn game, obviously, same thing, on the road, hostile crowd, without their top 5 receivers, Sean. Their top 5 receivers out of that game,
All of
not
them.
playing. Offensive line is in shambles. And it's not the playmaking that impressed me. It was his poise. He committed 0 turnovers. He handled pressure well. He just never looked rattled, never looked phased by the fact that he didn't have playmakers, by the fact that his protection wasn't great, by the fact that he's in this hostile atmosphere. His poise, to me, is what has stood out more than anything. He doesn't look like a freshman. Now, maybe we'll see some of that in the game on Saturday, but to this point, he has shown up and looks like a very mature quarterback that's not going to be overwhelmed by any situation. And the Cotton Bowl is unlike anything that you can possibly prepare for. So I'm obviously understanding that completely, but his dad being an OU player, he's grown up around the game. He's obviously grown up around OU football, and he knows what it takes to, I think, thrive in that program specifically. So, I think that's a big reason why he is able to just jump right in, and it feels second nature. It feels like family. He's comfortable.
And there's a lot to be said about that. And some kids there's so much pressure to play quarterback. And I think when you come in off of you're the backup or whatnot, I think that's a different situation. I mean, ask Arch Manning. But I will say the Longhorns, Hawkins has their full attention. And Barron Sorrell, the great edge defensive end, he talks about that.
Yeah, definitely change your mindset defensively. Obviously, with guys that are trying to throw the ball, you're still just trying to move them off the spot and affect them in some way. But somebody that is known to run the ball, you got to be aggressive in getting them down and getting to them early so then they don't have those lanes to run up the middle of the defense.
So Stevie Lee, who I do a series called The Pass Rush on this podcast every Sunday, he played defensive tackle for Mac Brown. But he said if this kid, Hawkins, gets loose, it's going to be a long day for Texas. I mean, obviously that is potentially a problem. But do you see that? I mean, can this kid turn the game around? Can he take over?
I mean, he has the athletic ability to do it, right? To me, the biggest worry, if you're an Oklahoma fan in terms of Michael Hawkins, the biggest worry is the turnovers, right? And making the big mistakes that are going to put your defense in a bad situation, because Oklahoma is if they're going to be successful this year, it's going to hang on the defense, right? And if you put the defense in bad situations, give the other team's offense short fields and things of that nature, then you're not helping the strength of your football team. If Michael Hawkins doesn't do that, his athletic ability is enough to, I think, stress a defense. Now, you also have the, I think, luxury to a degree of kind of keying on him, because Oklahoma has not, in the traditional run sense, run the ball well this year. They rank in the hundreds in the country in terms of rushing offense. If it's not for Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins, they're probably dead last in the country. I mean, just those two guys and their ability to run the football probably keeps them out of the very bottom spot. But in terms of the running backs in the traditional run game, it's been nearly non-existent. In terms of the big playmakers at the pass catching positions, those guys are all hurt. Brett Venables was asked earlier this week, what did you want to get out of the bye week? And he was like, I was hoping we were going to get our receivers back, but I don't think that's going to happen. Now we'll see as the week goes on, what that looks like and if any of those guys are able to go. But my point is, you can kind of key on the quarterback in this game without feeling like there are other areas that are really going to burn you. So maybe that's an area where, I think the mobile quarterback isn't as bad. But the reality is, no matter what defense you are, a mobile quarterback is always dangerous, right? And it's always going to have people playing a half second slower because you have to worry about his ability. And he's dynamic in the run game. We've seen that in a game and a half already against great athletes from Tennessee and Auburn, right? So the run game is a factor. And I will say this, it's a very small sample size, but he's got a big arm. Now, how good is he consistently and with the accuracy, if he's throwing the ball a lot? I don't know, but he has shown that he can make the big throws if he has to. So Again, he's dynamic, and he's the guy that they're going to have to stop. And, I think they have the luxury of being able to key on him because the rest of the offense is so far not launching yet. But yeah, he's a dangerous guy in terms of just being able to tuck it and go.
And to the common fan, listen, Texas defense, the personnel they have, it is to that level it was in the early 2000s. But to the simple fan that you say, we just need a spy on Hawkins, it's more complex than that. It's not saying Hawkins is this talent that Texas has never seen. He's a great talent and potential's there. But stopping someone in this game requires something greater on a defensive plan than simply putting a spy on that. Real quick, you mentioned it, running game, limiting turnovers. Jaden Blue, the great running back for Texas, he's pretty fast. He has good feet. He turned the ball over twice in the last game, or Mississippi State, and he was asked about that because he had to sit on that for 2 weeks because this has been a bye week, and he was point blank asked, how is he trying to resolve that fumbling situation over this last week and a half?
In order to be as successful I want to, I have to hold on to the ball. So, it's just, me working on a lot of things mentally and making sure that, I'm carrying the ball the right way.
So running back has been a problem for Texas as far as health. I mean, Jaden Blue was going to be a key contributor. And it's really odd for me to look at OU, and there's not that guy. There's potential. OU has had 2 or 3 great running backs for the last, 2 centuries almost.
Yeah, I mean, you can start rattling off the names, and you could probably go 10 deep easy, right? Just in this century, as we were talking about earlier. But, I mean, I think there's talent back there, right? I think Gavin Sawchuk's a talented guy. I think Javonte Barnes is a talented guy. The one to watch out for, and he wasn't available in the Auburn game because he got hurt against Tennessee, but Taylor Tatum, the 5-star true freshman, is the guy that kind of has the wow factor. I think those other guys are perfectly capable of getting it done, but Taylor Tatum's the wow guy, the one that, I think just when you see him touch the football, you feel that like big play threat. If he's available, obviously that helps Oklahoma's ability to maybe run the football. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like an established, that's a dude like Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, DeMarco Murray, Adrian Peterson, Rodney Anderson, Kennedy Brooks. They don't have that guy right now, but there's a bunch of good options back there. And part of that's also the offensive line, right? If you're a running back, you have to have an offensive line that's going to give you the ability to run the football.
That's the thing. Offensive line development in Texas for years, that was a problem. They just were not developing a good offensive line, and it has changed drastically with Kyle Flood and Sarkisian. And so you've got 3 NFL talents, in my opinion, on that offensive line now. It's just a matter of keeping these running backs healthy. I think that's going to be the key, Colby, because everyone talks about turnovers. Well, if you really look at the history of this game, it's not about turnovers. It's about who outrushes who. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when OU was down by 3 scores, they outrushed Texas by 200 and some yards, and that was the difference. If you look back in recent history, each team who won this game, they outrushed the other.
Well, remember the Baker Mayfield team that got upset. I think it was Baker's junior year. I believe it was Malcolm Brown and Jonathan Gray for Texas. Yeah. Both guys went over 100 yards that day, and that was the recipe, right? Texas just ran the football, and that was what I think the recipe was to pull off the upset.
Yeah, and it's plain and simple. Win the line of scrimmage, and of course limit your turnovers, but historically speaking, outrush your opponent. And the other one is, this is so easy. You are talking shit nonstop from pregame, getting out the bus, down the tunnel, back up the tunnel, back down the tunnel again, and on the field. It's hard to keep in check. But Jake Majors, the UT offensive lineman, there's this philosophy or this saying that Sark has drilled into the Longhorns' heads, which I think probably Venables does as well in regards to keeping your emotions in check.
That's not who we are, and Coach Sark's already alluded to that this week. And like I said, you want to play with emotions. You don't want to be emotional to where it gets to that point where you're hurting the team with 15-yard penalties. So, we're going to preach composure all week. And then when it comes to game time, when things start getting heated, we just got to come back together and get, just glued back into what we're trying to do here.
And that's the truth for both sides. I mean, if you have these 10, 15-plus yard penalties, that's obviously going to affect field position and having everyone the cohesiveness to stay together. And that's just from my experience watching these games.
It's the hidden yards, right, as they call them.
So, yeah.
Special teams plays like a block kick or a big return that gives you a short field, or, extending a drive because you commit a personal foul after you got to stop. I mean, how many games have we seen little things like that either, be the difference maker or just swing the tide, right? Because the momentum swings in this game is also super crazy. You feel like one team has complete control of the game, and it's one little thing like that. You commit a penalty that gives life to the other side, and that's all they need for their half of the stadium to get excited. And somehow that generates a little energy for the team. And next thing you know, the momentum is swung their way, and they climb back into a game. So those little things, those hidden yards, those special teams plays, the penalties, turnovers, all of that are such big things. I think in a game like this, when you have, two crowds, the Texas crowd and the OU crowd, because both sides are nervous as hell, and both sides are just like praying for something to go their way to get excited about. So the smallest thing can swing the momentum.
Easily. Man, we're going to take a quick break. We got to pay respect, homage to our guys at Honest. But on the other side, we're going to talk about fair food and fair beverages. It is essential, and it's essential to get there a little early, but thank God we don't have to be there as early as we have for the past since, God, 08. That 11 a.m. kickoff was horrible. You're hungover by, I'm not speaking for myself, but you're hungover by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's talk fair food and how to keep the greasy foods processing through your body to negate your beverages. That's on the other side of this break. Honest is a strong word, and we all need honesty when it comes to plumbing and HVAC needs. Somebody who will take care of the repairs efficiently and with quality. Honest Plumbing and Air is who I trust, and they take pride in that word. Honest Plumbing and Air, where a handshake still means something. Kobe Daniels, look at this beautiful, I don't know if they're on the pyramid, a chart of one's diet, but at least for one day, we get to indulge in all of the random greatness, the fried carbs. I mean, this is all simpleton right here, the wax cup beers and the corn dog. But I got to get something off my chest, man. Are you a ketchup or mustard guy on a corn dog?
First, let me just say that I've never been able to smell a photo like I can smell that photo right there. So well done. I don't know what magic you pulled here, but I can literally smell that photo. The answer is mustard without question. I think that we might need to call like the FBI if you're a ketchup guy. You need to be on a watch list.
I agree. I don't understand. Hey, listen, I don't discriminate against ketchup. There's times and places for it and food. That's not one of them.
It's not on a corn dog. That's for sure.
So the wax cup beer is just a rite of passage. But what are your first two purchases with the Texas State Fair coupons in the morning on Saturday?
I mean, if I'm not working, it's a beer before anything. I'm easing into the morning with the liquid diet.
Correct.
You don't want to put too much on your stomach like immediately. So, you go the beer route and then you start to absorb some of the beer with the greasy foods. Listen, I love a good fair corn dog. Fletcher's is awesome.
100%.
I rarely end up getting them though, because the lines are so ridiculously long. Look, I'm not waiting 45 minutes for my favorite food on the planet. I'm not doing that. So I'm surely not going to wait 45 minutes for a corn dog. I love those corn dogs. And when the lines aren't ridiculously long, I go get one, but more often than not, I don't get a corn dog because I'm just not going to wait that long. Anything that's just like meat on a stick, I'm in though.
Oh,
and I was looking earlier this week, Clinch. They have this year, maybe they've had this in the past, I don't know. They have something called Texas fried burnt-in bombs.
Oh, my
mouth-watering
soul.
brisket wrapped in shredded potatoes, bacon, and cheese, and it's deep fried with a raspberry chipotle barbecue glaze drizzle.
I'm sold.
I don't know where that is, but I will find it, and I will eat as much of it as I can.
100%. I am all there. All there. You have sold me. I've got to find the food truck or whatever, wherever it's located, because that must happen. That must happen. What's the best non-corn dog item that you've had, that you've consumed there?
One year, and I think this was probably because of my level of struggle from the night before, but one year I had one of the greatest breakfast burritos of all time. And I've had many breakfast burritos from the fair, especially on those 11 a.m. kickoffs. You get there for work at least at 5 a.m. and you're just waiting for something to open so you can eat as soon as possible. And there was one year that a breakfast burrito, it just magically cured me of my ailments. And I will forever remember that burrito as maybe the greatest thing I've ever had at the state fair.
Colby, I swear we're related. I think you have good taste in everything, including fair food. And I love this. We hopefully, between your media obligations, listen, I'll be your designated guy in the line. I'll get you one Saturday.
Okay.
I'll be there probably at 9 a.m. and I'll be, just text me and remind me of the promise, because you had to go through all this being on this podcast, so it's well worth it. All right, we reached the end, and you could probably predict this. Save the best for last, maybe, but I think the best was Colby Daniels, all his valued opinions from north of the Red River. It's down to this predictions. And this is really hard because this is a game, honestly, you can't predict this. I've been wrong 70% of the time about this game. Do you want me to go first, or would you like to go first?
You tell me. It's your podcast.
Man, on some days I like to claim ownership of it. But you know what? I honestly think that OU is let me just get to the point. I think Texas is probably tired. They have the team. They have the talent. They have this. If they're not going to get a win this year, then win. But we all know it's not predictable. I'm going to say Texas wins this game, and I think they put up the most points anyone has on that great OU defense. Let's look 33 to 16. Texas.
Okay. So you're right around where the spread is, right?
I thought they were going to. I honestly was starting to lean toward the under on the point spread. Like, I was going to say 7 to 10 points. But I say Venables and that staff, Luttrell, they're going to throw things at Texas, as all coaches do in this game, things we have not seen all year. There's no doubt.
And, it's hard to predict, I guess, what they're going to throw at Texas because we've only seen Michael Hawkins for like a game and a half, right? So who knows? And they've had a week off to, do whatever they're going to do with him in the offense. So I think to try and predict what OU is going to do offensively is a little tough. But look, 9 of the last 10 in this series have been one possession games. So despite the fact that I do think Texas on paper entering this game is 2 touchdowns or more better, I feel like this is going to be another one of those, like in the fourth quarter we're asking the question, like, which way is this going to go? And I don't know if it's going to be just Michael Hawkins make some crazy plays, or, maybe it's a kick return that helps Oklahoma stay in this, or a turnover that gives them extra life. I just feel like we're going to be in a game where, in an unexpected way, despite Texas being pretty much, I think on paper, the much better team, this is close in the fourth quarter. Ultimately, I mean, I can't pick Oklahoma to win the game. I don't think they're the better team. I think Texas just has too many ways to win on both sides of the football. I do think that Oklahoma defense is good enough to keep them in the game, and the question about whether they win or not just falls on the offense being able to actually, be productive in any way. But if they're not productive in any way, this could turn into a blowout, and eventually every defense in the country will get tired, right? So I think the Oklahoma defense can keep them in the game. I think Texas probably in the second half pulls away. I'm probably looking at something like 35-24 would be my score, Texas. And again, I think Oklahoma is going to keep it close for a period of time, but I don't have enough faith over the course of 4 quarters that the offense can do enough to keep them in the game.
Well, and that's fair. And I'll say this, I said 33-16. Texas is not going to pull away, in my opinion. They may jump up big in the first because you know how well Sark's offenses are scripted and they execute. I think they may go up big early. And in typical Red River rivalry fashion, here comes the Sooners. It's the turnovers and it's the swings we talked about. Then I think, to your point, I really feel like how does Texas respond? How do they expose or exploit that OU offensive line? Because if you're not getting those rushing yards, or you're allowing your quarterback to just run all day or in the pocket, it's not good, brother. It's not good.
I got a stat for you. Quarterbacks that make their first Red River start in this series since 1990 are 5-14-1.
Oof.
So,
wow.
Michael Hawkins is making his first Red River start. Quinn Ewers is not. But, 5-14-1 is not a great record. And look, I mean, in the last couple years, we've had a couple wins by those guys. Like Jalen Hurts, but he was a veteran, right? So he wasn't going to be as phased maybe by this atmosphere as a first-time guy would be. But, was it Dylan Gabriel as well?
Yeah.
So, because he didn't play in the game 2 years ago when OU basically didn't have a quarterback and the route was on. But outside of that game, I mean, that's really been the only blowout, right, in a 10-year stretch that has given us nothing but thrillers. So, I don't. This could be a runaway. I just feel like this game in general doesn't really bring that to the table very often. So, but I do think Texas is the better team, and without having seen more from this Oklahoma offense, it would be hard for me to pick them to win.
No, I feel the same way. But I would be shocked if it's a blowout by either side. But we all know the beauty of this game. It is truly the unknown. It really is. Hey, you know how we do it around here? We like to end with positivity.
Hey, man, tell me something good.
Kobe Daniels, Fox 25 Sports. We're Fox brothers now. I'm very proud of you getting a good opportunity on the TV side of things. It's just funny how life works. That was a special place to me. I enjoyed working there, and it was perhaps where I grew the most in my 20 years in that industry. But this is the beauty of Red River Rivalry. It brings all of us together. Even though I'm not in the media anymore, the mainstream, those relationships still continue. But anything, it could be about this game, life, whatnot, to inspire people. But tell me something good, my brother.
Look, first of all, just being on the podcast with you, catching up with you. I know we don't get to see each other as much as we would like, but it at least happens once or maybe twice a year. And we get to catch up over OU Texas, or even like back in December, OSU Texas in the Big 12 championship game, and having a few cold beers at Texas Live. But man, just enjoying the relationships that you've built and staying in touch with people is always great. And something good beyond that, I'll just say that more game related. Walking down that ramp, and I can only imagine what it's like as a player.
Oof.
But just I've done this. I think I've been going to OU Texas games in the media for 12-ish, 13-ish years. But walking down that ramp and it's dark and, there's just stuff everywhere. The band's got their stuff on the side. The Sooner Schooners over there, Bevo's, you're just making your way down this ramp. And then you start to see the sunlight right at the end of the tunnel. You go down the ramp, and as soon as you walk out, like the color, right? The blue sky, the green field, you see the crimson and the orange, and just the smell and the fresh. There is nothing like just once you walk down that ramp and come out of that tunnel. It is such a great feeling as just like a fan of football.
Right.
I can only imagine what it's like as a player, but that's something good for me. I love that feeling every year, being able to cover this game. And I'm incredibly grateful that I get to cover this game, but that's probably my favorite, just singular moment of covering this game is that moment you walk down the ramp and out of that tunnel and just kind of it's sensory overload, right? Like
it is
the sight and all the colors and the smell and the feel and you get that breeze on your face. It's just, what a magical moment.
Kobe, you said it best. You are a craft of a wordsmith, everything. The way you describe everything. But tell me something good. I want to play off what you said at the beginning and at the end. First off, these relationships continue for a lifetime. Some of the best people I have ever met who have been loyal friends since I met you and others and Oklahoma have been in my life. And they will be forever. And it was some of the most fun times. And then I got to come home and the media brothers here and sisters, whatnot. But the Texas State Fair and Texas OU for both sides is absolutely phenomenal. It's sensory overload as soon as you walk in the gates of this Texas State Fair. It is good people watching. It is weird. It's the foods are awesome. Take your cholesterol medicine. If you take that, take double if that's the case. And stay hydrated the wrong way and with water too. But I will say that tunnel, this will be my 19th Texas OU game, either covering or as a fan. I'm new to being a fan. Oh, my God, that tunnel, always did it every time solo, just to have a moment. The smell of history, that grass you mentioned, it is unlike any other grass, and the players chirping to each other because those locker rooms, they meet eyes. They are pissed off. And to have Dusty Dvorak, some of the stories he told, and some of the Longhorns I know, it is fun. And if you're in the Texas State Fairgrounds, get right there to the entrance to the locker rooms right there. And you'll see some unique things, some things that you will not see on the televised portion. So, Kobe Daniels, follow him on Twitter. Become a fan of Fox 25. It's Oklahoma City's Channel of Champions. And man, this great game, man, I can't wait to see you Saturday. Amen,
brother. It's such a special atmosphere. I'm so excited for this game. And I appreciate you having me on. It's always good to catch up with you. And I love you, brother.
Hey, lots of love, man. Look at this. Red River Rivalry has brought brotherhood and relationships. Make the heart. Let me complete your heart.
Yeah, the hearts.
Hey, Texas OU and Red River Rivalry. It's always good to talk about it. Had to go through all that mess.